Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners, to our virtual workshop for the ending of August of our summer here. So I see everybody. Well, I don't see Commissioner Street. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's just so weird the way it always shuffles on my Brady Bunch board. But tonight we have two items to really focus on for the virtual workshop. We're going to first just spend maybe 15 minutes or so and give a quick update on Robert and Mary Kane Park, and kind of just make sure that everyone's on the same page. We've had a lot of discussions about that park over the last year, but it's really exciting. We've got some great plans, very preliminary plans that our Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department have been working on with the community and with Commissioner Lucas. And the reason why I wanted to just spend some time to talk about was just to collectively update all of y'all, and also because we've got Mr. Myrell with the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Department. He and his team have some assets and resources identified to help with Margaret Mary Kane Park. Additionally, we have the Hill Improvement Society, which has come in with committed resources and desires as well. And then we also have North Star Church that has come in additionally and wants to help make something happen to completely rebuild this park and really to expand it. And so in order to just avoid duplication of efforts, I really wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same page and everyone had visibility, so that Keith would then, have all the information and all the players, so that we can move forward not only quickly, but also efficiently for the benefit of this park. So I'm going to give a quick kind of background of kind of where we're at, and then I'll turn it over to Keith to kind of expand on the plans that he's looking at. So let me share my screen. Oh, I am sorry. I am supposed to be an admin on this, but I'm having to get permission. Apologies. 1 second. Cody or Donald, if you're watching, I need permission to share. There we go. All right. Thank you. All right, so here, let's go into minimize this and go to focus. All right, so if you want to, again, this is kind of what we're going to do really quick tonight. We're just project background and description. I kind of talked about some of that, the scope, the funding, the implementation plan, and then a very high level timeline and schedule. And then we'll show you some of the plans and kind of what's already been decided, what's already in motion, and then some of the future projects and efforts down the road. So, Mr. Myrell, all yours, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. This just gives a quick high level timeline and schedule. What we've been in the process of doing the last 6-8 months since I've gotten here is kind of plan design and research and development, and meeting with the community with this this group and with other community members, as well as for Bay and Northside Church and Keith Willingham. So some of the elements that we've looked at is originally was just the basketball court, and then that expanded to, well, before the hurricane, there were all these other elements that provided activities for the park, like a bandstand, a restroom, a playground. So we started really kind of delving into that. Worked with a couple of playground vendors to kind of hone in on what the theme of the playground would be to coordinate what Robert and Mary Kane did with the education component. So we have a playground design that we've already shared with this, and that community has already decided on kind of the playground design that we have identified. Additionally, as we went and did a site visit to the park, we realized that there's a lot of untapped potential there on the backside of the park with the woods, and we can put in a nature trail. That's originally where it was decided to put an expanded multi-purpose field, and that's probably the heaviest lift is how would we get the funds to do the land clearing there. That would probably need to be a donation or a grant. We are planning to apply for the FERDAP grant. That deadline is 9/30 of next month. So
what does that acronym mean, Mr. Myrell?
It is
Putting you on the spot.
I had it in my email.
No.
Someone earlier.
What department is it through?
It's through the state. It's a recreation development grant. So it's the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program, and it's through the state. And it's very competitive. It's up to $200,000 with a $200,000 match. So we have some leveraging that we can do with some of the elements that we're going to be putting forward, but also with Bay and this. So we were able to kind of, I think, maximize that grant. So I think we'd be competitive in applying for that. So that's a 9/30 deadline, and that would be a real help in really moving this project forward if we were able to get that grant. So then the other couple of elements that we've talked about is a small bandstand. In meeting with Mr. Marshall and some of the other community members, there was, the school nearby like to do their graduation ceremonies and also just some other activities there. So we were looking at a small bandstand there, as well as a restroom facility. So Matt and I have been talking about the price for doing a restroom facility, a two stall unit there, which would be, I think, sufficient for a park that size. So that's kind of the high level elements that we're looking at. Public Works has also said they would help us in developing kind of that nature path. But there's also a really cool new element that you can design, kind of a BMX track with
let me switch
with rock formations it's a new feature that we could put it kind of in the middle of the park there that would be incorporated into the design of the walking path with this BMX kind of bike feel in the middle of it.
So what you're now looking at is just, again, a conceptual rendering. Obviously, this is the southernmost point here along 17th Street where you see the cursor is. One of the things that myself and Commissioner Lucas talked about was improving the parking there. You kind of drive into an inside of a fence area that's really, really tight with bollards. Instead, we can kind of push that forward to the north and maybe create more like an organized driveway. And anytime and parking area, and anytime you come in and pave and stripe and delineate parking, you do maximize that parking, being mindful of the sidewalk that's through there as well. And we feel that this is something that we can likely do with our in-house crew as well.
Yep.
This is the small bandstand area he's talking about, adding the restroom, the basketball court over here. Of course, you have the existing field. And then this is the BMX track, and he was kind of talking about some of this. I don't know, Mr. Merrill, if you want to speak to more of that. I don't know if you, I guess, had one in one of your prior cities.
No, it's a brand new element that We Build Fun is now promoting. They're formed concrete rocks. So they're already formed. You bring them in, and then you set them into place. So it's very easy to install. It runs about $65,000 for the elements.
Mm-hmm. Well, rumor is that the mayor still has his BMX bike from the late '80s, and so he really wants to get it out and try this out. So, and then I think if you move to the further to the north, this is the orange would be kind of a trail that would go around, kind of the top, roughly the top 2/3 of the entire parcel. More in of a nature feel, like a gravel type path, and keep as many of the woods and the natural, I think topography as possible to kind of give it that nature trail feel. And then, of course, adding in the center. And I think to Keith's point, this is probably one of the heavier lifts is, the soccer field in the back, getting that cleared. Obviously, there are some wet areas back in here, not wetlands, but just lower areas that we have to be mindful of. We definitely don't want to create a field that's always wet, but we also want to be careful we don't push water out into any of the nearby parcels. And then also, this was just kind of an example of the playground. I think that was floated. So I don't know, very, one for younger kids, older kids to that footprint.
Yeah, it'd be a 2 to 5 year old element, and as well as the 5 to 12 year old. So 2 different ones for different age groups there.
Yeah. So anyway, though, and then I think we have some of the estimates over here. Let me see if I can zoom in on that a little bit. and just kind of scroll through here. So again, basketball court, looking at a total of 59,000. The playground, 125. Small bandstand shelter, 95. The walking path, the BMX bike loop, that's roughly 110. Soccer field, this is the new soccer field in the back, correct?
Correct.
Yep. Just a little over 100,000. Small restroom, anywhere from 80 to 100. And then improved parking, looking at 30,000. Again, we're looking at the city handling this on the in-house. So again, just wanted to provide kind of a background on it. And at this time, we are happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. And Commissioner Lucas, I see your hand is up, followed by the mayor.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are excited about the plans that have gone into Robert and Mary Kane Park and moving toward the city fulfilling some promises from decades ago. So excited about that. Am taken aback a bit by the BMX road path. And then also when we did our walkabout, we talked about a multi-purpose or football field, as that sport now is growing with a number of teams that are looking for places to play. So talk to me about how the BMX path came about and what happened to multi-purpose field.
We'll start with the multi-purpose field. I said multi-purpose field. The paper said soccer, but it's a multi-purpose fields in general are rectangular in nature, and that's what this would be. So this would be just a labeling correction that it would be a multi-purpose field. A soccer field and a football field are roughly the same size, a little bit different width-wise versus length, but that would be a multi-purpose field from that standpoint.
Keith, what would be the plan for the field that's there now? Would it remain kind of multi-purpose?
Continue to be open space for, once we put the basketball court in, it's going to shrink that footprint a little bit. So that's going to kind of reduce the ability for more organized activities. It'll be more just open space for kind of, just recreational impromptu play, as opposed to more organized play there. But the multi-purpose field, to your point, Commissioner Lucas, would be a multi-purpose field, not specific to soccer. So we'll make that clear. The BMX track part one, it was, I think when we did a walkabout, we did talk about nature paths and potentially for biking. And this was just an element that I recently came in contact with one of our suppliers, and I just thought it would be a really neat element. Doesn't have to be. I mean, it's a, the price tag is what it is. So if that could be reduced or eliminated, we could take that out, and it would be be left in that.
Excuse
but
me one
I think
second.
it would be a really neat
Hey,
activity.
IT team, I'm being told that for some reason this is not streaming live. I'm not sure if that's been rectified. If y'all could just look into that, please. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, but I think from the standpoint of just being able to provide an area where kids could learn how to bike and learn how to do some nature kind of biking activities, that could be a really neat element for that area. It's not a huge footprint. I'd have to look specifically what that one was, but it's not a huge footprint, so it's probably out of scale as to what you see on the plan itself.
Yeah, so that's when I looked at it, it's like, oh, that's a large
Right
parcel there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily to scale as it is, so it'd be condensed.
Yeah, and likewise, what you're calling the bandstand looks also disproportionately small. So
yes,
it's strange.
Okay. All right. What would you like me to look at, Keith?
the Trailblazer up there.
Oh, that one. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's 7 pieces, and they have a little video. You could kind of see what it is, but you could kind of see just from that picture what the scale of that would be compared to what is on the paper. So,
All right, Mr. Mayor, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, a lot of awesome ideas. I would encourage us to really narrow down our focus to the core one or two or three, four things that the neighborhood really, really, really wants, and focus on getting those accomplished in the order that they feel the priority is. What we want to avoid is doing something before something they haven't asked for before something they've asked for, right? And then with the bandstand, I love all the ideas. We want to avoid McKenzie Park's bandstand in that it's not great for bands. It's not good
Right.
for it's not good for a lot of things, and
Yeah.
kind of too small for a band. And so even if there was a way to do a bandstand that worked as a shade structure, 95, because that's really the majority of the time the band's not there. It's only 2 hours, probably every other month or something like that. So really ensuring that there's coverage for shade for moms that are waiting for kids to come out of whatever practice there are, kids that are running around. And then, with bandstand specifically, I always worry that we have, Millville Park, but now we have an obligation to program it. And so just being cautious of that. I even mentioned to Jennifer Vigil at one point, I said, well, maybe TDC should buy a small stage that's portable and not have stages everywhere, because it does set us up for the obligation of constantly then programming the facility. And we have that trouble even with downtown, in that if you pay for a band, it's thousands of dollars, and then you're left with like, who pays for it? Because no one really directly benefits. So you're relying on the, benefactors to program it. The trails and stuff through the woods are super cool. There's pump tracks we could do at some point much later. I was actually in Philly with the park designer of Knoxville, who they did their own pump track, which is similar to that BMX track. Those are becoming, and Janice, what's interesting about pump tracks, and I've never even been on one, it's not meant for like super sophisticated BMX people, really even kids, of like up a hill and down a hill and just kind of coasting around little turns and things. But I think if we launch anything like that before the neighborhood sees their requests, they're going to be very upset. So we want to be very, very sure of that. There was one other item, parking. We're not going to have a lot of parking there, no matter how many spots we create. So it really is a neighborhood park. So the neighborhood should drive those decisions. But I do love all the ideas. So that's all I got.
And let me
So I
just
would
say
say,
thank you
oh, go ahead, ma'am.
thank you to Fort Bay County, Keith Gillingham, and others who've come forth to support the community's desires, and also to this organization, Virgil Marshall, Charlie Coram, Elizabeth Blakely, all those folks who are meeting regularly and working to support the vision that they have, not only for the park, but for the Hill community. So thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Street.
So my only question was, is there any specific designated who's doing design? I know you only had it up there for a second. So are we doing civil engineering in-house? Is there something specific
Yes.
that we're working
Yes,
on
sir.
from that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And do
We
you
actually
have
went and actually walked into the woods. Janice Lucas put on her boots, and we were tromping around in the middle of the woods with Stacy and Matt and Keith and I in that. So our goal would be to do the civil engineering in-house. Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have an estimated timeline on maybe some of the first round of amenities to be ready and what those would be?
The first will definitely be the basketball court. Fort Bay and our staff would have already has a plan together for that, and then we just needed to coordinate with Matt and his team to make sure that from a stormwater standpoint, we wouldn't affect runoff for the neighborhood to the right. So I think we're pretty close to being able to kind of start forming that up, and then getting we already have the basketball goals on order, so that we're really pretty close to that one being coming in. I would say by Christmas or end of the year, we would have that installed.
Okay.
The neat thing about that particular location for the basketball court, it's in between two light poles that are already there. So it provides some lighting from the two security lights that are there. So we wouldn't have kind of dead space where people would go and potentially do nefarious things.
Any idea on the timeline for as far as like fully engineered of all the stuff that you showed us today, or whatever that may be?
I don't believe we have a firm timeline on that, sir, but we can have the engineering division kind of crunch some numbers and circulate that within the next week.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep. All right. Mr. Mayor, your hand, is it up or was it up from prior?
No, I got it up again.
Okay.
Just in the idea of spending money, we might find, I'd love to see a cost analysis of real lights for the basketball court on a timer. And the neighborhood might say, well, we'd much rather have that than pump track. So just giving everyone the options of how money is spent.
Commissioner Hughes, go ahead, sir.
Hello. I echo what Janice is talking about. I didn't know that the bike track was going to be there or something like that. Have we had any more community meetings after basketball after that to say, here's what we really want? And I think we have. And I would encourage us to use the wooden area as idea camp, if you will, for from the community. And then secondly, engineering for a basketball court. Can't you just grade it to go left rather than right? That speeds the process up. Or do you have to do that? Not trying to take any work away from the engineering guys, but that's kind of a grade issue, I would think. As a question.
Yeah. I mean,
In terms of the size of the basketball court, we would trigger our own stormwater requirements. The court's, I think, something like 60 by 100. Is that right, Keith?
That's correct.
So that's 6,000 square feet. So we trigger our stormwater at 2,000.
That's fair. Okay. And so you're going to do all the engineering for that site and that and the field at the same time? Or just
I would think so.
basketball?
I would think we would do it all together, sir.
Thank you. All right. I'm good.
One more. Is the neighboring school interested in participating if they need like a field for PE or something? Like during school hours?
We have a good
So-
contact.
So yes, Rising Leaders has sent letters of support for making the park a community park. They do use it and are supportive of the community efforts.
Cool.
Yes, and they've expressed the interest of having their graduation ceremony there once the bandstand is installed. So yes, we've been in communication with them.
Cool.
So is the difference between a bandstand and the structure we have at Millville Park, is it the size of it, or is that at Millville Park also a bandstand?
It is the size. I mean, Millville Parks is a bandstand, but this would be, I think, more smaller in nature. One that would suffice a graduating class, be able to have, a smaller band or entertainment. I know there's been talk about having a talent show and those sorts of things there. So those are the type of elements that we were looking at in planning for this particular. And it would serve as kind of a shade structure when it wasn't being used as more of a bandstand. So it would kind of be, I wouldn't say the clamshell look, but it would be narrower in the back than it is in the front. So about 40 feet in length to the front, 30 feet deep, maybe 25 feet in width in the back. Don't quote me specifically on that, but yes, about that.
How does that compare to McKenzie Park? Because now I'm thinking, okay, that's one size and Millville Park is another size.
I consider McKenzie Park more of a gazebo than a bandstand personally,
Okay.
But this would be more in line to Millville, but a smaller version of that and not as ornate. Yeah.
Commissioner Hughes?
So if the school has already expressed wanting to use it for graduation and things of that nature, making it smaller doesn't really go with having a bunch of people on there.
We
how much
kinda
bigger is Millville than this one is planned for? Do you know, Keith?
I don't off the top of my head, but we did kind of do the math in terms of the number of students that they had in the class and extrapolated that so that this would meet their need.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Sean and IT team, I'm still getting feedback that the actual live stream link, which is where most people go to click, is still not working. So hopefully we're trying to figure that out in light of our next conversation. So, okay. So that's really it. We're coming up on 30 minutes. I just wanted to kind of give a quick update and overview. And I think just to underscore the point, I know that we're closely engaged with Commissioner Lucas and the Hill Improvement Society, or this, in that, which is kind of made up of the community in and around there. And so if for folks that are watching, if you want to be a part of this, if you want to make a contribution, or if you have thoughts, please reach out to either Commissioner Lucas or Keith Myrle on our team as the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Director. Both of their information can be found at panamacity.gov under the staff directory, which is one of the main links at the very top of our page. But I see Commissioner Hughes put his hand back up. Go ahead, sir.
Do we have a date certain that we're going to come back and we're going to move this forward? Or are we still in a preliminary stage that we can't do that? I'd like for us to have a date to work towards if Janice was in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think once we get the engineering plans from Matt's team, we can move pretty quickly on the basketball court. So why don't we get that plan from him hopefully next week, and then we can have a better. We'll put together a kind of a phased approach as it relates to the items that we've already decided upon, and then a phase 2 with some of the items that are still needing more discussion.
And Matt, you can do that next week.
Next week's going to be a challenge. We need a survey with a topo for stormwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we will proceed with all haste.
Okay. I want to make sure that doesn't get lost. We're coming up with a lot of stuff. And if we have a date to work towards, I just feel like we all kind of work a little bit more cohesively together, working that way. So, all right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. All right. So we're going to pause here briefly for about 60 seconds and shuffle around and then shift into our next discussion item.
Why did they just cut the video off?
I don't know. They said they're shuffling.
They're shuffling something around, I guess. Okay.
I feel like we should have music playing in the background.
Yeah, Slack, when you do a chat in Slack and someone hasn't picked up, it plays like on hold music. Like you get to choose what kind of music you want listening to while you wait for the person.
A little jazz elevator music right now.
We need
Be
some.
nice.
We need some. We're getting some rain this week.
Go ahead and tell us the weather, Mayor. What's on this? What's happening in our neck of the woods?
Let me get the weather report for you real quick. I hope Kristen Kennedy is watching this so she can know. We have a strong chance of rain towards later in the week. Thunderstorms. No, oh no. It's dropping, the percentage is dropping, but it was looks like we are gonna get some rain at least. So
Have you gotten your
Make it be
hurricane
a little bit more
preparedness kit?
humid.
what was that, Robbie?
Just make it a little bit more humid for us.
I mean, I think we just maxed out the humidity.
It's like you're breathing water almost.
You are breathing water.
Yeah.
Oh, I did enjoy it. Was when I was in Philly that 3 or 4 days, it was like nice when it would cool down in the evenings. It was just nice having it cool down where it was like, oh, it's only really hot from like 10:30 to like 2:33. And so
we went canoeing down Econfina on Saturday, which was great. It was cloudy. It didn't get over 90. Humidity fell a little bit. and then a bookend on each side was 100. So it's nice that that day was only day.
We
we
went
go.
up to Blue Springs, and you can find which is a little spring that I've never been to, on Sunday for just like an hour and a half. And the spring systems here whenever I go to them, I'm always like, man, I always forget how incredible they are. And not just ours, going up to Vernon and all the springs around here is just incredible. The Morris
Yeah, they
Spring.
got 7 of them between off of 20 going down into 388 Bridge, and they're really nice, and they built out.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we're back. Sorry about that. We did some shuffling, and then there is a slight IT issue, but it is streaming on our YouTube channel, and it is being recorded, and it will be uploaded. But the link on the bottom of the website, which is where most people go, is not working. We're working that out, but again, it is streaming to YouTube, and we are recording it, and we'll have this uploaded just ASAP for that. So. The next item we're shifting into is the downtown marina, and 2 items that are going to be on the agenda for tomorrow, beginning at 4:30 p.m. at the county government building. The first item is under the city attorney. It's an alternative financing option for the construction of the first 50 wet slips, and we'll talk through that in a second. And then the first item under city manager is the consideration of the award of the bid for the construction of the first 50 slips. As just a little bit of background, I want to say it was towards the end of 2023. I was not city manager yet, but I believe that's right. Towards the end of 2023, prior city commission authorized the St. Joe Company up to $450,000 to go out and design all roughly 200 wet slips in the downtown marina. And through that process, the St. Joe Company chose Terrell Hall and Associates out of the Fort Myers and Naples area in Southwest Florida to do that design work. And so we have worked with both them and St. Joe over the last year or so to do that design work and to put that forward today. We did get a number of bids back on that for the construction of the first 50 slips. The recommendation from Terrell Hall is the 3rd lowest bidder. And again, we're just going to talk through that tonight. We're going to answer questions. I do want to just confirm and remind each of the elected officials that Mr. Terrell and Mr. Jowers with Terrell Hall and Associates will be in person tomorrow night at the meeting and available to answer any questions that the 5 of you might have during this process. But that's just a very quick overview of where we're at. There's been some additional information. I know that the lowest bidder that was received was Art Marine Construction, and he did reach out to you all and to city staff expressing his perspective on why he should receive the bid. And then we subsequently asked another question, and we've shared that with you all as well. So we do have the recommendation from Terrell Hall and Associates, but again, additional information has come in. So that's just the basic facts of where we are. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zimmerman or Mr. Burke to talk through some more of the complexities of where we are from a bid perspective, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Unless, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to jump right in, I was going to let Mr.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that one of the attorneys outlines the when we are looking at the lowest bid, our job is to do what? And that's what I want them to define.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Jonathan. This is I guess a little bit unusual in our recent history of the city to have an opportunity where you've got a bid that goes like this, and the 3rd bidder is being recommended. And so the way I want you all to kind of think about this tomorrow is that you are really in a similar spot that you would be when you're considering like a rezoning request or something. What you've had is, if you consider your all the bidders to be sort of your applicant seeking the change to the zoning code, and then you've got staff. In this instance, it's Terrell Hall and Associates is your consulting engineer that's reviewed the bids and made the recommendations. And then we have a code, and the code in this instance is the invitation to bid with the rules in it, and your city purchasing manual. And so you're going to take those, what we've presented to you or what's being presented to you, and tomorrow you're going to consider who is the lowest responsive or the responsible bidder. Lowest responsible bidder. Those are your keywords there. And you've gotten the recommendation, as Jonathan said, from Terrell Hall as to why they have reached that determination. You've also had, as Jonathan just pointed out, you've gotten some additional information in the meantime. I believe all of you have seen it. Additional information in the meantime from one of the bidders explaining what more of their experience might be. And so your job tomorrow is to weigh against those recommendations and as to what the qualifications and the ability of the bidders to perform the job for you. Can they meet the criteria? In your bid package that went out, it said that we are seeking bids from qualified, experienced, licensed marine construction contractors to provide all supervision, labor, and equipment required for the construction of 49 wet slips and 21,343 square feet of wooden fixed dock within the existing Panama City Marina West Basin. And the lowest responsible bidder that meets the needs of the city, taking into consideration, among other things, cost effectiveness, the financial responsibility of the bidder, the capability to perform the contract on a timely basis, previous satisfactory performance, and such other abilities of the bidder that the city in its sole discretion determines will enable the bidder to perform effectively and efficiently. Now, those are the rules. What was the criteria in order to be a responsible bidder in this particular? And that's found in your instructions to bidders. And the first is that bidders shall demonstrate a minimum of 5 years of experience in marine construction. And then that bidders must have consecutive and active experience of work similar in scope and magnitude to this contract. And bidders shall demonstrate that they have provided these services or similar services to private and or public organizations of similar sizes and requirements using the qualification statement form. That was through the process, as you're aware, bidders have a certain amount of time after the bid is let or the invitation is let to make requests of city staff regarding things that they may find to be unclear in the bid documents or items that they think need further clarification, et cetera. And through the course of this particular one, in addendum number 3, that 5-year period for the qualification or the look back period rather was amended. In addendum number 3 on June 1st, there was a request for information, and it spoke about the statement of qualifications that we just talked about. And the addendum went out to all of the bidders that were interested that the requirements of this contract exceed normal commercial dock construction. This is from one of their bidders or someone interested in bidding. And the last sentence of their request was that the requirements of this contract exceed normal commercial dock construction. So please tell us what are the minimum requirements of the qualification standard to be an acceptable bidder for this contract. And our response, the city's response to that, was that the city has decided to extend the look back period from 5 years to 10 years to allow for a larger pool of similar projects to be eligible for reference. Please provide 3 to 5 contracts similar to this project in the past 10 years, and the city will be prepared to look at those projects submitted for alignment with this requirement. And that's what was received by you all. So there's your standards. Do you have someone who has the financial ability, who has the ability to complete it timely? And do they have 5 years of active construction? And then have they got projects, 3 to 5 projects of similar scope over the last 10 years? again, you've got the recommendation from your staff there. So where does that leave you? Some questions come along about whether or not the contract amount is the contract amount. There was a request by staff for the lowest bidder as to why they were so much lower than some of the other bidders, and they provided that response, and that's in your package or available to you. I believe it's in the package.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's their explanation as to why they are capable of doing it so much cheaper than the other bidders. So do they have the ability to meet the financial requirements? The people worry about all the time. What is the change order? I think staff will tell you most often change orders are change orders for time. And that's typically because we've run into weather or some other thing that needs time to be extended. When we run into change orders for price, most often it's because there is a subsurface condition that exists that none of us knew about. We, as the owner, didn't know that there was something below the surface. The bidders or the person contracted who's successfully been awarded the bid, even through all their due diligence, couldn't determine there was something underneath that we all couldn't see. And so we discover it, and now it's going to be, it costs more to do that. In this instance, it's going to be obviously the seabed or the bay bed over there, the basin bed, which we have had cleaned out recently. In the current recommendation you have, Terrell Hall finds that is something that should be considered favorable to the third bidder, which is Holton Harder's, the one that they are recommending. Otherwise, the price is the price. I mean, that's what it is, and so we wouldn't expect to have any change orders. Every bidder that you've got is going to be required to obtain a payment performance bond, so that we know that if for some reason they fail to pay subs or they fail to perform under our conditions that we've required, that there is an insurance company that has determined that that their company is worth backing and providing that insurance to offer up that payment performance bond in the amount of what the bid of what their contract award is. And then of course the other items that you need to consider are the ability to perform on a timely basis and other abilities that you may or may not determine are, and when I say you, I mean you as the city commission, you determine are in your sole discretion abilities that give that particular bidder the one that should be awarded the contract. I think I've loaded you up with a great bit right there, so I'm going to stop.
Yeah,
I'm going to take a breath. Jonathan is going to stop kicking me, and I'm going to let you guys ask questions.
I'm not going to kick you. So thank you. And for the benefit of the public, that was Mike Burke, one of our assistant city attorneys. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we also have Clint Murphy, Public Works Director, who's the project lead for this. We have Michael Fuller, our Development Services Director, Matt DeVito, one of our city engineers. And then joining us online is Sean Self, Logistics Director, and all of the purchasing division, and their function falls under him. So any questions that you guys have about this process, our team stands ready to answer that. So Mr. Mayor, I see your hands up, sir.
Yeah, in our meetings last week. Last week.
Every week, sir. We meet every week.
I try to forget that, Jonathan.
Oh.
No, in our meeting last week, I mentioned to Jared that after the storm, I believe FSU PC did a scanning of the mud and stuff. There was a whole scanning process because if we're worried about unforeseen change orders, it would be potentially in the dirt, in the mud. And I don't know if that scan was ever found. The applicant called me, our construction called me today, reached out to everybody, and we spoke today. He actually said they dove the marina or worked the dirt for like 2 days looking for issues potentially in the mud as well. So he was very confident about subsurface conditions. So just giving more feedback. Did Jared ever find the scan from FSU PC?
He's actually here off to the side. I didn't mean to exclude him, but because he wasn't on the screen, I didn't.
we've been looking for it since you mentioned it. What was it, Friday last week?
Thursday.
Yeah, you haven't had much time yet. It was either Thursday or Friday. So
Yeah. Well, and a little more information again. Clint Murphy, Director of Public Works. We've actually hired a contractor that came in and cleaned out both the east and western basin of debris since that survey was done. So that survey is really not relevant anymore because the debris has been removed.
And we know that for sure.
Yeah, in fact, we hired H.C. Harders to do that.
Okay, there you go.
the conversation in our meeting was potential concern about the fire suppression wet pipes. And we discussed that, that's a specialty license. It's not a normal contractor license that you hold. And that they probably all or many of them are using similar subcontractors. I brought that up to the applicant of the lowest bid, and he actually said he's expecting before the construction project that he will have his license for that as well, for fire suppression. So,
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any questions? Again, our goal was just to try to talk about this as much as possible. Of course, there will be no vote here this evening on the workshop. But again, just want to get as much information out as possible to make this process, because I know everybody is excited and anxious for us to get these wet slips going again in the downtown marina. Go ahead, Commissioner Hughes. I think I saw you raise your hand.
I did. So obviously, there's a disparity between the low and the recommended on price. I have concerns that material costs are material costs, and these material costs somehow are lower. And while I appreciate and respect Mr. Burke's explanation on the change orders, that disparity is so big, it's very concerning for me. It's kind of like, and I don't know this to be true, but it's kind of like you're working for free. I mean, it's that big. Clint, do you have any concerns about where that sits from the next or to the recommended, from the first and the recommended?
Are you saying on price?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am a little concerned about that. It seems to be a very low number to me. Both Terrell Hall and Associates and I independently did estimates on what we thought the probable cost would be for this project. In their memo of August 3rd, which you have as one of your attachments to this agenda item 12A, they show 3.7 million. Mine was a little higher than that. I put a little more contingency in. It was about 3.8 million. So if you look at Harder's price, they're about 3% lower than what Terrell Hall predicted. And they do, that's primarily all they do is marine construction related design work. So they've done a lot of marinas in Florida. They have a pretty good index of pricing. And for them to be that far off is a little concerning. Yes, sir.
Good, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Street, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so just two questions. One, who's staff recommending, or if there's a recommendation for CEI services alongside this project? For those that don't know what CEI is, basically construction inspection. It ensures that someone's actually doing what they're supposed to do according to the plans.
We do have a plan.
Yeah, we do have a plan if you want to speak to it. I think that it has to do a little bit with potentially what finance option we go with.
That's right.
Go ahead.
That's right. Well, we do have it planned. I predicted if we, it's 9 months projected project schedule. If you do up the math, that's about $156,000 to hire outside CEI services for this. We do have some in-house capabilities, one of which has marine experience. So there is a chance that we could do CEI in-house if that was the preference of the commission. But about 156,000 would be what it would cost for us to bid that out.
And the comment that I was alluding to, Commissioner Street, is that, if, we have the alternative finance option, which is if St. Joe does prepay the rent that they already owe us to do that, then they express, and y'all have all seen the proposal for y'all's consideration. But they would play a little bit larger role in the construction management in that, and so all that would need to be worked out depending on what financing path we take over or go down. But however, absolutely need to have CEI in this.
Why? Everything is, I
100%.
mean, other than driving the piles in, why do you need CEI? It's all, you can see it all. Why do you need CEI?
Driving the piles is pretty important for this project.
Okay.
So,
I mean, that would be our recommendation. There's no grant money or requirement. So if the commission did want to vote that we don't do CEI, I
At
don't.
some
There's
point
no
in
grant.
this,
Yeah, there's no.
I
Yeah, there's
thought
no
at some
grant
point that
requirement.
St. Joe was going to manage the construction on there with no charge. Was that, did I hear that wrong?
Well, there's a difference between construction management and the actual CEI of that, and I'm happy to have one of the engineers get in the weeds a little bit more on the difference. So,
well, construction inspection is day to day. You literally are taking notes on what equipment, what labor.
standing up basically shoulder to shoulder with the
That's right.
contractor.
Yeah. Detail notes. Administration is a higher level.
Reviewing the pay apps, which
Yeah.
are terms, another term for that is an invoice, making sure the numbers line up to some degree.
Josh, who would you like for CEI on the outside, or is that something we have to bid out?
I mean, I would prefer someone from the outside, from the perspective of, having somebody that's going to ensure, regardless who's managing the construction, regardless of who's doing the construction, that it's actually done to what we designed it to do. I do not do any CEI on any project that I've done. And the reason why is I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, well, was that pile really 15 feet in the dirt or was it only 14 feet in the dirt? There's no way for me to know that. But this is a visual project. So, I mean, I would think that, hey, even if we evaluate after the 50, I don't know, but, I would hate to see, something not done correctly, regardless who we use. So.
Commissioner Street, can you clarify? I think you said you personally don't do it, but do you guys hire professionals to do it for you?
Yeah. But a lot of the times it's on projects that have a substantial amount of engineering. I mean, if somebody's doing drywall, no, you don't have CEI for that, but if there's some technical component that's frankly going to have somebody's life and the balance of whether it's done correctly or not. I mean, that's an important point for CEI. I get what Robbie's saying, though. I mean, it is frustrating to have to go and pay. I mean, maybe we need to evaluate how we do CEI as far as from how we do those contracts on continuing services. But, I mean, I would hate to see us proceed without having CEI. So that was just my thing. The only
That's
other
going to be my second life now is a CEI.
Yeah.
They do get paid, I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
So
Commissioner
there's a lot of
Granger, go
things
ahead,
I
sir.
don't know.
Yeah.
I do have one more question we'll come back to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You only get one shot.
Oh.
No, I mean I would echo that. I think we got one shot to get this right. And I don't want to necessarily just save $1 on CEI to bring back our marina, right? I want our marina back. I want it back as good as it can possibly be. So I'd rather not sacrifice CEI to just save a few dollars in the big grand scheme of things, right? I know $150,000 is a lot of money, but on a potentially $3 million project, it's a line item. I do have a question though, and I'm trying to get from A to B on this, so I'm hoping y'all can help me out here. But as I understand it, on Addendum 3, one of the bidders asked the city to identify minimum qualification standards for the fire suppression, water, electrical work type stuff, and the city declined to add any specialty standards, and only went from 5 to 10 years. And so I was kind of wondering why then it's because it seems like the marina utility components then were later used as evaluation criteria. So I'm trying to get from A to B on that. I don't understand it, and maybe there's a miscommunication here, but that is something I would like to know.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know if
I can speak.
Yeah, all right, go ahead.
I'll give it a
Thank you.
shot here. Maybe Sean can jump in. The reason we extended the look back period to 10 years, uh, 5 years is kind of our standard for most of our projects. We do a 5-year look back, but most of our projects aren't marinas, and you don't build marinas every day. It's not like a road project. You do one every year. So one of the thoughts was that when Hurricane Michael hit in 2018, there was a lot of marine work necessary after that due to the devastation. So if we extended that to 10 years, all the work that's been done since Hurricane Michael would fall into that time frame. So that's one of the reasons we extended the period. I think our intent was not to really change the criteria except for extending the look back period. So all the other components that were in the original instructions to bidders was still valid, including 5 consecutive years of marine construction experience in similar scope and magnitude.
Yeah, so I understand the 5 to 10 year period. I get that. That's not even what I'm really discussing here. I'm discussing the other specialty standards. It seemed like in uh, the recommendation that the marina utility components were used. Like I get the extension of going from 5 to 10. Everybody then has the capability of doing that, but that's where I'm just trying to understand how did that work out. And maybe I need to ask him tomorrow. Maybe that's what probably needs to happen. But
Yep.
that is something that I'm kind of confused on. I don't understand how we got from no, we're not going to have a standard to now you're held to the standard that we didn't have. That's what it seems like. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, Commissioner Granger makes a good point. We're getting you to ask these questions today so that we'll be prepared for answers tomorrow. But it will be important that tomorrow, when you consider this, you ask these questions again if they are going to be a material part of your consideration of who you award this bid to.
Sean, anything to add regards to that, sir, or no?
No, I agree with what's being said here. I think that is a question really should be directed to Rail Hall tomorrow.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Nice background, Sean.
I can assure you he's not in San Francisco. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
That's the
Well,
halfway
I could
bridge.
be at the marina there. You don't know.
Can one of the attorneys kind of go through like maybe a 1 or 2 minute scenario of if we chose the lowest bidder and they came back to us and said, "Oh my gosh, you meant pressure treated wood? I thought you meant balsa wood," and I had all my estimates were estimated off of paper mache pilings, not actual wood. What happens in this situation?
I don't know if you picked that, particularly because that question was probably asked 5 times by the prospective bidders. What kind of decking can you use, and can we use a different vendor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the answers were no, we want to use weather deck, or I think was that the name of it. And we want to use shade gray cool foot or something.
Barefoot gray.
Barefoot gray. I'm sorry, barefoot gray. And so in that particular instance, they've all of your bidders had an opportunity, and I will tell you through the 7 addenda that you have here and the pre-bid award meeting minutes, you can see that they all asked very specific questions about materials, about fasteners, about all of those things, and so everybody is bidding on the same standards. So if someone comes back and said, "Oh, we thought you meant, unweathered deck, burn your foot black." No, we didn't. That's not what we intended to be. Sorry, if that's what you did, you got to eat that cost. You've got to build what we ask you to build. We've told you what we want constructed. We've been very specific about it. You've had every opportunity to ask about it, and you've gotten all the answers that are there. So you're presumed to know. And they sign forms when they submit this that confirms that they have seen every RFI, they've read every addenda, and they understand the specifications that are being bid out.
And the contract will say that as well.
And the contract incorporates the terms of your bid
Perfect.
specs too.
And then my second follow-up question is that oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Come back to me. I lost my train of thought right when you said that.
All right.
No, wait,
John, did you-
CEI, that's right, CEI.
Oh,
So
okay.
the big concern that we can't see is below the water. So is there any sort of CEI situation where they assess below the water and then we assess the following rest of the project?
I was going to chime in on that. One possible middle ground might be to just have a geotech company monitor the pile installation, which would presumably be shorter. I don't know, but that'd probably be a couple weeks worth of work probably. And then I don't know if we would already have the building department inspect the above ground or the above water, beams and joists and stringers and whatnot, but
yeah,
that'll all be a lot more obvious if it's not done
correctly. Sure. Awesome.
So
that's all I got.
Sean, did you want to add something real quick, sir?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Mike said. There's a couple of things there. Obviously, once a contract is signed, the performance bond would kick in. We have that. But beforehand, the bid submissions for all 14 who submitted, they're locked in for it's either 60 or 90 days, I think it is. They can't withdraw that bid. The only people that can let that bid be withdrawn is by a vote of the commission. So at this point, they have submitted it and they are locked into it unless you allow them to withdraw it.
Thank you. Commissioner Street and then Commissioner Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say, and I'll say this tomorrow, is we go through these bidding processes, and we're supposed to have all our stuff, all our ducks in a row. We're asking for qualified people with licenses, people that can do the jobs. We put all of these specs in, and this time we had so many bidders that we questioned the number, versus times that we get one bid and we don't question it at all. So I would just put that food for thought out there in our process as we're going through things. Because we get more bidders, we scrutinize more, versus when we have one, we scrutinize less. And I don't know that that's a fair engagement of the process. And so I would just encourage us, as we evaluate things on cost, we go out to bid for a reason. And so I'll just leave it at that. So that's not really a question. So more of an observation.
Yeah. Go ahead, Commissioner Hughes.
Who's doing CEI down at St. Andrews?
Well, yeah.
Are we doing CEI at St. Andrews?
I'm going to suggest that Anchor Marine does that, but I will be involved in that as well.
But did anybody do CEI while they built the docks, the slips?
No, not that I'm familiar with.
All right.
I mean, I kept an eye on it, but I wasn't out there every day.
Yeah, you can sit on your porch and watch it. So, yeah.
I think that. Go ahead, Mike.
The distinct difference there is that is their contract, meaning Sam's. Yeah,
right.
That's not ours. You're the owner in this instance, so the CEI is your owner's rep here.
Yeah, I figured he was going to be the deal killer on that when I asked. All right. So next question is, and to Josh's point, we put out a bid for the Martin. We got one back. We scrutinized it. We sent it back out. So I know that the Martin originally for the remodel was one bid that they accepted, but for me, it's not about the number of them. It's the space between the bottom and the next one, the space between the bottom and the top one. Those are, again, not gone through this process a lot. That's the alarming piece for me. Is there something missing? Are they just making too much money in the other bid? I don't know. But, and I agree with Josh on that we're scrutinizing, but there's nothing to scrutinize on the first one if there's only one. And the most recent example is Martin Theater went back out because of one. Partly because of the RFP, but partly because of the only one bid. So, but I understand what Josh is talking about.
And Commissioner, you're right. The construction RFP for the for the Martin Theater was a single bid response that was awarded to that bidder, but the RFP for an operator was the single bid response was rejected and back out on the street. So you're right.
Any other questions before we shift over to some of the financing considerations? And again, I just want to be clear that Todd Terrell and Jake Jowers, two of the engineers with Terrell Hall and Associates, will be in person at the meeting tomorrow to answer any questions that you have. So, all right. Well, right before this particular item, we're going to be discussing a financing option for y'all to consider. As it stands right now, as a reminder, the commission already voted, and Truist Bank affirmed the ability to use our loan if we so desire to pay for the construction of these first 50 slips. But additionally, back in August of 2020, the city and the St. Joe Company, through their subsidiary Joe PC, entered into a ground lease again back in August of 2020 for a small portion of the downtown marina property. They then constructed and operating both a hotel and a restaurant to the tune of almost $40 million investment. As an obligation of that ground lease, they're paying participation rent to the city based on the percentages of the gross revenues generated by both Hotel Indigo and Harrison's Restaurant. They have put forward a proposal where they are willing to prepay in an amount up to and not to exceed $5 million to fund the construction associated with the phase 1 wet slips, these 50 slips. So that item is under the city attorney. So I'll recognize Mr. Zimmerman if he'd like to say or add anything before we start doing any questions and answers with the commissioners.
That's a good summary. It works similar to what.
Just speak up a little bit, Nevin.
It works similar to what our FEMA grants are, or probably most bank loans. You spend the money and then you get reimbursed, and that's the way this is. The invoice is submitted from the contractor. The city pays, request reimbursement, and then there's time periods where reimbursement will be made. As the St. Joe Company, as they make payments, then that is accounted for in a prepaid participation rent account. And so let's just pick a number, 3 million, 4 million, that is spent on, and the contract did contemplate that there would be CEI and construction manager as well as the contractor. But as that money is spent, then it goes into this account. So it's sitting there, whatever the amount is, 3 million, 4 million. Then as payments, rent payments become due, then that account gets a credit against it, or it gets reduced. And then once all of the money has been spent, because the rent payments won't be made physically, they will be taken out of that account, and that account gets reduced. Once it gets down to zero, then rent payments would directly to the city would resume. So that's the way that is envisioned. There's no interest or carrying cost on that amount of money. Obviously, St. Joe is very interested in getting the marina built, and they did approach us with this is an option for you to consider. They realize that the city does have financing lined up that will tide us over for a year, and then we'd need to look at some permanent financing, or this is another option. Also, they did ask that because it's important to the community, it's important to the investment, the $40 million investment that they've made there between the hotel and Harrison's Restaurant, that the marina gets off to a good start. And so they, as a condition, they have asked for a management agreement to actually operate the marina. The payment of that is 3% of the gross revenues. We have, and so that is the, which I understand is a market rate, but we have asked PFM, our consultants that looked at different management contracts throughout the state of Florida, to look at that. but that would be for 5 years. Then if there is, when phase two comes online, they would want to be able to operate phase two in the same way and under the same terms as phase one. Phase two is the rest of the basin next to the restaurant and hotel. So that is the proposal. I mentioned in my letter, there's a few, mainly some time frames we had questions on. We do have a call midday tomorrow with the attorney for the St. Joe Company, but those were just a handful of little questions that we have. But that's there for your consideration and discussion tomorrow.
All right. Commissioner Hughes, go ahead, sir. See your hands up.
Yes, sir. Let's talk long-term debt. If we got into the loan of $5 million that we've been approved for, and we got the money over at St. Andrews that we're using, is that the only long-term debt that we would have off the marinas? I know we're trying to pay down, we paid $73 million. I think you said we're going to have some more. What is that all the long-term debt we're going to carry off of both marinas together? Or are we asking for more if we went that route?
Well, we don't know. And we don't know because there is, we meaning staff, how about that? And the commission doesn't know because you haven't discussed it. But that is, once this contract gets awarded, there are a lot of important things to discuss next, and such as how will you finance the remainder of the marina? And that's an obligation that St. Joe has put in this contract, is that the commission look at lining up funding. So when the permit does come for the remainder of the marina, that the commission will be in a position to go ahead and start construction. That has not been looked at, but there is not cash in the bank to build the rest of the wet slips. And that's just the wet slips. We're not talking about anything uplands. The one source of money that we're aware of is $5.5 million FEMA grant. But that grant, the commission needs to, once this is done, also have a landing place with a scope of work for that grant. Would it be the water and sewer? Would it be the promenade? Would it be railings? It'll be a time period.
The boat ramp.
Right. There's a lot of different things that could be done, but commission just needs to identify it, put that aside, and then we go through EHP process, which is anywhere from 9 months to a year with FEMA. But that timing is probably fine because it'll take a while to build the 50 wet slips, to do the uplands improvements to support the 50 wet slips. The permit for the remainder of the basins is probably still 9 months away. So that's a long way of saying we don't know.
Okay, so there's a takeaway from there, and I will quote our friend Nancy Pelosi: "Pass the bill, and then we'll read what's inside of it." And I'm concerned that we heard a lot of these are going to happen later on, numbers and decisions. Are we getting the cart before the horse and all there on some of these money decisions that we got to make later? I don't know if we are or not.
Is that related to the St. Joe agreement?
Right. So we get the St. Joe agreement. You said once we get this together, meaning awarded the dock, I guess the slips, and we, I guess, come together. Let's say we voted to do the St. Joe agreement. There's more in there that we have to do. We have to find out where the money's coming from to build the rest. We have to get the permits. There are things that we have to do that we don't know if we're going to be successful at or not. You said there's no cash in the bank. Is there an opportunity for us to partner with somebody? Does that close that door? I don't know.
The one commissioner asked, and it was a good question, is, well, what's the worst that can happen under the St. Joe agreement? In other words, what if there's a termination of the agreement? The agreement provides, let's pretend that $3.5 million has been paid by St. Joe in prepaid rent. And then something happens and the city decides, well, it doesn't make sense. Let's just go ahead and pay them off. So you could pay them back their prepaid rent and then move on to something else. I mean, you still have the obligation to St. Joe in the 50-year ground lease, but that's kind of the escape valve under the St. Joe agreement.
What if Hurricane Michael shows up? Who's responsible for that renew? Is it after 51%? Then it's FEMA. But up until that, who's responsible for the docks? Us? Because
The
we
city
own them.
is, yeah, the city is responsible. St. Joe is acting, as like a bank. How about
I know.
that? They're
Yeah.
acting like a bank. They don't have any ownership at all.
Would you explain to us that about the window that we have on if we chose to go with St. Joe, we've got a 60-day window to operate in to find some common ground. Like I have a problem with the 5 years. And so that's something we can work on without having to have that worked out before the vote. Is that correct?
The agreement that you would have, it says that there are 60 days, if it's approved, to work out the final management agreement. And if that final management agreement can't be worked out, then the agreement is terminated. There won't be any money to pay back to St. Joe because we wouldn't have spent any yet, or we wouldn't have requested any money from St. Joe yet. So if for some reason we can't agree to the management agreement, then the agreement would terminate. However, the agreement does have some material terms in there trying to help us focus this on a staff level. These are the things that we agree that we're going to kind of work toward. So if that is, if 5 years is a concern, it would be good to talk about that tomorrow.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, please correct me if I'm wrong. I want to kind of summarize what Mr. Zimmerman said. Tomorrow, we're simply agreeing, do we like the terms of an interest-free prepayment of rent? And then we move into discussions, can we work together with them as the marina management company? Or this would be the boat slip management company.
Yes, and however. How about this? Yes, and however. However, they are tied together.
Sure,
the prepayment of rent only will happen if there's an agreement on the management.
Right. So I share into a lot of the apprehensions that Commissioner Hughes has. I have not done my homework to know what standard municipal private-public partnership marina management, or excuse me, boat slip management agreements look like. I want to see a similar agreement that we see across other municipal boat slips. And but as far as a prepayment of rent interest-free, and that sounds really awesome to me. It's about the other details, but in the meeting that we discussed, to kind of further touch on what you mentioned, Mr. Zimmerman, which is that we could technically use this as a construction loan. And then at some point we go, oh my gosh, we're willing to pay you back now for the prepayment of rent and sever ties. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. But just to make it clear, there is no immediate pressure to actually approve this as at tomorrow's meeting. If for some reason, if you wanted to award the contract, you already have funding lined up. So you could approve this in concept, tell us to go work on it and bring it back. Or we could, so that's, I'm hedging a little bit because we are going to be talking to the attorney for St. Joe, and this is so helpful to us to get this feedback now, because then we'll be asking these questions of her.
Yeah, other questions I had were, if we did pick the lowest bid, potentially there would be a remaining balance of that 5 million that I would be interested in seeing if they would move that forward to the next 50 slips. That would
Great
be
question.
Yep. Or could we use that money for breakwater? What the other steps to get even the other slips built? We need a breakwater to protect that basin. What would other be? What are other allowable uses of that money that would continue forward with our goals aligned? I'm apprehensive. I'd like to get Dover Coal to sign off on any sort of design changes, widths of sidewalks, lighting, benches, all those sort of things. I'd like Dover Coal to weigh in on those sort of things. And along with parking deck, or parking pads, I think would be a better name for them, parking deck, where that was mentioned. And even a group of local fishermen to sign off on the railing, especially a railing around areas where people will fish. I'd like to make sure the public weighs in on railings that work really well for fishing. And then any landscape options, I'd like to have a native landscaper look at those as well. So I'm excited about the conversation moving the whole thing forward too.
Commissioner Street?
Okay, my questions are, fairly simple. Is there anything in the agreement that's presented that requires us to build or allow a condo or any amount of additional square footage be built on the marina?
There's nothing in the agreement concerning that.
Okay, it's very different than anything else we've discussed at this point. Second, my question is, they're asking for a 5-year commitment on management. Did they mention how they're going to operate a marina without any ship store or any infrastructure or anything else like that, and hope to make any money?
Well, that's an excellent question, and we'll get that answer. But it was my understanding initially that some things would just work out of Harrison's restaurant. Now, that, maybe that's just for a month. I don't really know. But the excellent question, and we'll ask that.
And did PFM ever respond to the question regarding what is a standard marina management agreement for percentages or anything else like that?
They have not yet.
Okay. So I would love to see that before we make a final decision, obviously, on anything. Utilizing the loan temporarily in hopes that maybe that I would like to say, and I think we've all been united in this, that we don't want the city to stand up another marina team for 50 slips, I believe. So that means there will be some type of outside management. I would prefer us go with the management that's obviously going to make the city the most money, as well as provide the best level of service without, creating more financial commitments beyond what we already have allocated. So, but sounds exciting, sounds very interesting. I could see how that might work with them utilizing facilities they already have there. I do think that gives them a distinct advantage over anybody else, because obviously somebody else is going to tell us they want to go build something, because you just can't have a marina without a place to actually do business for a marina with. I don't think that we should reopen fuel docks immediately, only because we lost a lot of money doing that. So let's not do things that lose money. Let's do things that actually move us forward, because ultimately, if we make money, we can go build more slips and we can finish out this marina. That's the end objective and the goal.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes?
Yeah. So where will, with it being FEMA reimbursement style, we're going to pay the bill, send it in their agreement, we have to send in 3 different invoices: CEI, construction management, and contractor. They determine if they're all right, and we have to do accounting. There's stuff for us to do. Is that we have that department already, so we can make that happen. Where's that money come from? Our loan? Are we getting that and having interest attached to that payment and paying it back? How are we paying for that upfront?
So we would pay for that out of the loan, and as a reminder, that loan is not a line of credit, so we're already paying interest on that loan right now, sir. So this, if we did that, it would not add any additional interest to the loan.
So the money that's not working for us right now, we're paying interest on, but what is deployed is there's no additional interest, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Zimmerman. I believe I'm correct.
The balance of 5 million that Alan was talking about, is that what's extra coming in from FEMA? And I like the EHP process is a long process. So that's something I'd like for us to focus on, and so that we can create the scope of work, get that submitted, and know where that's going to go. Because that's something on down the road, but that's something we don't have to worry about now. Okay. EHP, the reason that there were 2 buildings in town, MLK and the Martin, those are why we were able to use FEMA dollars on them. Here we're going to have to do the same, but it's going to take a minute. Any thoughts from the commission on where they'd like to see that? I'm big on the boat ramp. I'd like to see that. And remember, we're also talking about CRA bonding, so we've got some more money coming in there too. But any thoughts on what we do with that 5 million? Because it's important to get that going.
Just to clarify just a little bit, we have up to 5 million from St. Joe that is for one project right now, and that is for the wet slips. The mayor asked, well, depending on what bid is accepted or whatever, there may be more money. Well, there's only one project. So I took that comment as to ask, hey, would you be open to additional projects in addition to just the wet slip project if you're willing to go up to $5 million? That's a question in St. Joe. Now we have another number, which is close to 5 million, 5.5 million or so. That's the FEMA grant. And that's what I was speaking about. And I believe that's what you were speaking about, Commissioner Hughes, as far as landing on in the relatively near future, what scope of work the commission would like to do with that FEMA grant.
And Commissioner, you'll note in my memo that's an attachment to 12A. I made the recommendation that we use the FEMA money toward the complete build out of the East Basin. The reason for that is the timing of the EHP and the permit, and when we're going to get to the East Basin, it lines up pretty well. The dollar amount lines up pretty well. And most importantly, we know exactly what we want to build over there. It's already been designed. Whereas if we looked at some of the upland stuff, we're still in limbo on exactly what we're looking for there. We need concrete plans. So that to me is a logical choice of where to put the FEMA dollars. And we could certainly include the boat ramp in that scope of work as well.
Because there will need to be some aligning of that,
Right.
Just a slight adjustment immediately around it. Commissioner Granger, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So, Robbie, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Where would we put the FEMA money with the very, very long lead time that's required in order for it to get through EHP, in order for it to meet FEMA standards as well. So we can't just throw it on anything, right? It has to be on certain things. And I think Clint's idea is probably the best one that I've heard so far. Which is we've already got something that's designed and engineered. So FEMA with them would be the long pole in the tent that after they get through their EHP process, then we would be good to go to move forward on building out the rest of the marina. Yeah, I mean, we got to figure out this is kind of a jigsaw puzzle that we're kind of having to put together with money that we find. I'll also agree with the comment that was said earlier that I would much rather use zero interest dollars on this than put this, because if we use the money from the bank, ultimately the citizens of Panama City will be saddled with that debt. They will ultimately have to pay it back, over time, of course, because it will switch to long-term debt. And where we can mitigate that, I think, is the best use of the taxpayer dollars, is to not use the taxpayer's dollar, right? To not force them into debt and then require them to pay it over the course of 10 years or so. Yeah.
And
I
I
think it
agree
was
with
like,
that, Brian. I do. Because the
yeah.
best that we can do is $3 million extra. If we go with the loan, it would
Mhm.
cost an extra $3 million in interest. So to your point, immediately every citizen is saddled with that expense on, that we wouldn't have if we go with a 0% interest.
Yeah, agreed. So, question to Nevin, is there anything in this agreement that would allude to or show restrict rather public access to the areas that they already have public access to? I realize that the boat slips are not public access. They weren't before. But what my question is that is there anything in this agreement as it stands today that would prohibit public access from the current areas that already exist?
No, there is though a 60-day window to work out a management agreement. And so that in that management agreement, as we have learned, that it has been an issue at St. Andrews that is, we need to make sure we're all on the same page, whatever page that is, when it would come back to you for approval. And that is one of the issues that we need to discuss. But there is nothing in this agreement that discusses that or changes anything.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Street?
Yeah, to just echo what Nevin just said, I mean, we're having conversations about who's enforcing boat ramp use and all sorts of other stuff. I think it's very, we should do our diligent. It should be transparent. It should be, yeah, it should be different. Let's just leave it at that. And then the only other thing that I'll say, as far as like what we should focus on next, I mean, we got to get infrastructure out to these slips. We got to get infrastructure ready for the rest of the basin. So I mean, railing, all of those things, I mean, I think is really important for us to kind of focus on to next, so that we can actually, get the TDOC fully operational and going. So as far as where to invest money, if we've got money to invest, anything that's along that side would be ideal. I definitely understand the point of having something designed, maybe with the FEMA money, to use it for that, but there's still a lot more money to go beyond 50 slips. I mean, that's a quarter of what's required for the full basin, and that's not even counting the infrastructure and everything else that goes alongside that. So there's still a substantial investment to come. Just want to reiterate, no one is talking about building anything on the uplands in any of the things that we're talking about tonight. So that is a good thing. So thank you.
Maybe with the exception of transformers for electricity. That's about it. So, all right.
As long as they're wrapped and they look beautiful with some nice like fishing stuff maybe on the side of it. Let's talk about those aesthetics. If we could workshop that, that'd be great.
They won't be hot pink or hunter's orange. I promise
okay.
that.
All right. Okay.
I've made Clint commit to that already. So all right. Are there any other questions before we call it a night? Awesome. Well, look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. at the county government building. And again, we'll have our engineers that did this design work there in person to answer any questions. Have a great evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.